Our guest this week, because each week we bring you a very special guest here on Erskine Veterans Radio. And this week it's my great pleasure to welcome someone who has spent pretty much a lifetime of their career being involved in nursing and healthcare, and now serves as a member of the Erskine General Council and the Erskine Clinical Governance Committee, helping form the direction of the Erskine Veterans Charity and the care that we provide. And she'll tell us more about that, I'm sure. She's also on the board of trustees at Riding for the Disabled in Scotland as well. And it's my great pleasure to welcome to Erskine Veterans Radio, Brenda Wilson.
Hi Ian, thank you very much.
Well, looking forward to speaking to you and finding out more about you. First of all, let's start with the backstory, really. As I mentioned, you've had a long career yourself in nursing and in healthcare, but how did you find your way to being involved with Erskine?
I guess, yes, I have had a long career with the NHS and in the private sector as a nurse, with my background in perioperative nursing care, so operating theatres for many years, from almost newly qualified right through to theatre management and service management within the NHS. Yes, that has brought an interest around clinical governance, which attracted me in the first instance to support Erskine, but really my connection with Erskine is probably more personal than through clinical or nursing. And that was really through my father, my dad, who actually was a resident in Erskine at one point, and in fact had ended his life in Erskine. So that's really the personal connection that brought me to support Erskine.
And you talked about your career there, both with the NHS and in the private sector, and now you've seen the work done here at Erskine. What do you think the differences are that you've noted between all of those various different areas of healthcare?
Well, I think, certainly from NHS, as I say, I've worked as a clinician in peri-op and also as a manager, and then as a senior professional nurse, both as a deputy nurse director and interim nurse director too in the islands in Orkney. I think the differences really are Erskine is the person's home. There are some clinical processes and care that are delivered and have to be to the same high standards. However, at the end of the day, it is the person's home and has to be treated as such in terms of trying to fit that clinical part around the home in a kind of unobtrusive way, I suppose, and that is the main difference. One is a home and one is actually a clinical facility to deliver treatment of whatever sort.
One of the big differences, I think, with Erskine is the sense of community, the camaraderie, the banter, if you like, as well, that the residents, the veterans, are able to engage in, which is something probably a little bit different to what you find everywhere else as well. And that sense of community and the village atmosphere, if you like, within the homes and houses.
Absolutely, and that is a huge attraction. I've also had relatives both in the Glasgow home as well, and two relatives in the home at Bishopton, including, as I say, my own dad. And that was one of the huge attractions when he was first moving from his own home into care when he needed that further care, was the possibilities that it gave all of us around being able to take him out for the day, walk around the ground, sit outside when it was a lovely day. I mean, it's just a beautiful location. The Glasgow home, clearly slightly different, but still has its own merits. But definitely having the river and the hills beside you and the green grass is just fabulous.
Maybe a natural progression, some might seem, but obviously not quite as straightforward as that, moving from being a visitor, visiting family members who are living at Erskine, to then now being involved as a member of the Erskine General Council and a member of the Erskine Clinical Governance Committee. You're a trustee at Erskine now, helping guide the Erskine Veterans Charity. Tell us about that move to that side of things.
Yes, I mean, as I say, really the interest was stimulated following my father passing away in Erskine. I commenced really on the General Council and supporting and being a member of the Clinical Governance Committee. And after a couple of years, I can't remember exactly how many, I was invited to join the Board of Trustees as well. It gave me, I think, a dual opportunity in terms of bringing my clinical acumen and knowledge around clinical governance into that, into those forums, but also having that personal history as well, and understanding the care that's delivered, how it was delivered, and the needs of the residents was helpful as well, to be able to blend both of those aspects together.
It must have been a very difficult time over the last year, of course, to be one of the people having to help make decisions and take decisions to the direction of Erskine, as with anybody who's involved in care, with all the things that we've had to encounter over the last 18 months or nearly 2 years now. Tell us about how the last year's been as a trustee at Erskine.
Yes, I mean, clearly as it has been for everyone in the general public, and across many organisations, very difficult, but clearly there was a real focus and challenge within care homes across the United Kingdom and Scotland, which Erskine has managed really, really effectively, and as well as could be done under guidance that was issued and followed. The care team under both Derek Barron and Pauline McIntyre have been exceptional in terms of that care that they delivered. And in fact, another relative, my mother-in-law, was a resident within Bishopton during the initial stages of the COVID pandemic. And from a personal relative perspective, as well as being a board member, it was very challenging for relatives to not have that contact. And I think that put further challenges on the teams caring for the residents in terms of trying to compensate for that and support residents through such a difficult time where they couldn't see their loved ones. And I think the teams did find that really difficult, but they've done an absolutely fabulous job in caring for the residents during this time.
What would you say to someone who is a registered nurse and maybe is considering a career in care at Erskine? What would you say to someone to make that leap into this form of healthcare?
Absolutely would encourage them to explore that option. I think for many years probably the care sector was seen as not the exciting part of clinical care. However, that really is changing now, and there are huge opportunities coming in for a lifelong career in that sector of care delivery, and it's just a wide range of opportunities around the type of care that's delivered, the ever-changing roles, particularly Erskine leading the way in some of the innovative roles that have been perhaps available in the NHS previously around, say, for example, advanced nurse practitioners, the benefits they bring to the residents around keeping people in the home, not transferring them to hospital unnecessarily, reducing the burden on the local GPs, for example, with the advanced nurse practitioners, the dementia specialist nurse role that's coming into fore. There's also a very clear career ladder that's been developed for care within Erskine that allows that progression potentially, and as I know has happened, where people have come in as a healthcare support worker and have then gone on to become registered nurses and return to Erskine once qualified and graduated as a registered nurse. So there's a huge opportunity for a very varied and very satisfying career within care home sector.
And if this is something that does interest you and you'd like to find out more, then there are regularly vacancies available across Erskine, and we'd love to hear from anybody who is a registered nurse and wants to take up a career in the care home sector, particularly with Erskine, of course, and get online erskine.org.uk to find out more about those opportunities. Obviously, heading into winter now with your clinical governance hat on. We heard from Derek Barron a couple of weeks or so ago about preparations to make us all as safe as possible heading into this time of year with COVID boosters and flu jabs, and hopefully we're heading into a better winter than last year.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously the uptake of the vaccines within the residents is very high, and as you say, moving on to those COVID vaccine boosters alongside the usual seasonal flu vaccine is hugely important for both residents and staff to be accepting those opportunities to take us into the best possible position going into the winter, to keep everyone as we can and keep things as normal as they can be. Having, as I said, having a relative in Erskine Bishopton last Christmas where you weren't able to have that time with them, really the main aim has to be that people can spend the time with their families this Christmas safely.
Absolutely, that's what we're all hoping for. Something else that you're involved in is Riding for the Disabled Association, which is an organisation which obviously is big in Scotland, but also right across the whole UK as well, which provides some opportunities for people to be involved with horses and riding, and quite a therapeutic thing to be involved in as well, I imagine. Tell us about Riding for the Disabled Association.
Well, Riding for Disabled, I'm involved as a volunteer, and that will be 10 years in April. I was a volunteer there for a couple of years again, and then went on to train to be a volunteer coach. So I take a couple of classes a week. Clearly, the Riding for Disabled has been impacted by COVID as well, and we're just in the process of trying to get riders back. But it provides huge benefits for the riders across a variety of disabilities, whether it's learning disabilities, physical disabilities such as cerebral palsy, MS, lots of different conditions. It provides a social aspect, but from a physical perspective around core balance, and from a mental health perspective, it's really beneficial to be involved with the horses. Myself, I got involved because I've always had a passion for horses. Have ridden since I was young, not fantastically stylishly, but as best I can, and just getting the time to do that when working full time was a challenge. But so there was a mutual benefit in becoming a volunteer with RDA in Glasgow, where we are very fortunate. We have a purpose-built stables in Summerson in Glasgow, and it's just I've got fantastic staff, fantastic volunteers, and even better and more wonderful riders, that people that have got really challenging personal lives that come along and ride and enjoy. And the social aspect is for the riders, for the volunteers, but also for the parents and carers that can come along and have a cup of tea and a bit of break when they come to our classes. So as I say, we're just getting back to the point of bringing the riders back in. I'm also a trustee with Spina, Bifida, Hydrocephalus Scotland, so there's a clear linkage there as well with Riding for Disabled, and some of the service users within Spina Bifida, Hydrocephalus Scotland also use the RDA facilities as well. But it's an amazing organisation, and again, it's another charity always looking for volunteers to support. If anyone has an interest in horses, then they would be very welcome.
And it's not just riding, is it? I think just being around horses can be quite therapeutic for people as well, can't it?
The mutual benefit is great for me being around the horses. I know some people might feel it's not something in terms of the smell and the environment that they want to have, but it's all of that comes together. The smell of the hay, it's the smell of the Redina, and just that overall experience, and it's just so rewarding to see the people coming into the classes having fun, smiling, laughing, enjoying themselves, and having that opportunity to be together with others. And a lot of our riders are just amazing people. They ride, they swim, they do ski, adapted skiing. We've had another one that's done gone through the disabled pilot training. They are just amazing people. They really are.
And if there is someone listening to this, one of our residents, one of our veterans, who wants to be involved in Riding for the Disabled, is there a link between Erskine and Riding for the Disabled at the moment? What's the plan if somebody's listening to this and thinking, yeah, I'd like to spend some time with horses? What can we do?
There isn't directly at the moment, but obviously if a veteran had a disability of, as I say, whether physical or mental health, then they would be considered to come into the classes. What I have done previously was for a person I'd come across in working life who has vascular dementia and had a sort of a list of 20 bucket list activities that they wanted to take part in, and one of them was to ride a horse, and we arranged for them to be able to come along and have some time with the horses and riding a horse as part of their bucket list. So there's lots of things that we could look at.
So if you want to ride a horse, maybe Riding for the Disabled might be able to help you out. Brenda Wilson, it's been great speaking with you this week on Erskine Veterans Radio. Before you go, is there a song we can play for you?
Well, I do have a choice, and thank you very much for inviting me, Ian. It's This Changes by David Bowie, and I think it's very relevant for the time that we're in at the moment.